Wake the farm up. Circle up. Greetings.
Peace.
Welcome to Wake the Farm Up, maintaining ground. Today we're with Darsheel Kaur, community facilitator and wellness practitioner. Coming with the circle of roots. They're excited. You can see them all out there like they're jumping. Oh, now they think I'm doing something silly, but it's, we're going to have fun. We're going to get some serious stuff in here, I just know from even just this little connections that I've had with Darsheel. She's an amazing, I would definitely go right into those realms of community facilitator, wellness practitioner, from my interactions with her originally at Honey and Sage, where she was co-facilitating a whole bunch of amazing workshops that were getting people connecting and exploring into deep places. From what the Edit Elves have sent me, this is what the Edit Elves has sent me.
Yeah, we sent this over to you by a tree fax through the mycorrhizes. Yeah, it says something here.
Yeah, and it's a quote from the LinkedIn. I'm amazed here. She loves to work with passion and purpose-driven individuals and groups to explore culture and interdependence, so we can heal historical wounds and sustain sovereign, thriving communities in harmony with nature. She works with a focus on the intersections of community healing, culture, and sustainable living. So yeah, let's all welcome Darsheel in.
Thank you.
How are you today? Feeling good. See you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So I'm so curious about where you came from, before I even met you, what brought you onto the journeys that, brought you to, this amazing work that you've gotten yourself involved in.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm definitely where I am due to my ancestors and my family. I come from an immigrant family that our ancestral lands are in India and in South Asia. And I come from a spiritual lineage of Sikhs. And so we are students of life, and we are to continue to be students throughout our life journeys, and seek to be a bridge between the spiritual and the material worlds. And so, coming from that lineage and then growing up as an immigrant in the Midwest in Beaver Creek, Ohio, came with its own set of challenges and in my upbringing that combined with that ancestral wisdom that I brought with me into this lifetime, have kind of led me into the work that I do now.
I love that. Like, I'm so curious, like, how, were there like moments that you really like felt like connect? Like, is there any stories of like moments that you really felt like you had pivotal moments in the way that you're flowing with this ancestral connection and present moment?
Yeah, I came from my work kind of began as an adolescent and a teenager, and in my young 20s doing community activism and organizing work, which is something that is in my blood. My grandmother fought on behalf of Indian independence from colonization. And so that kind of like frontline community engagement work is something that, I've been told that I was channeling the energies of my grandmother from other family members. And then that journey led me into my own personal healing journey, because as I was kind of uncovering these truths about society, about humanity, about the current state of the world, I started also being mirrored back into my own journey and my own needs and the places where I needed to go through my own personal healing as well to connect some of what had been disconnected over the years. And so through that healing journey, I really started leaning more intentionally into my own culture and my own background. My family has used natural remedies for healing my whole life, and my ancestors used Ayurvedic medicines and homeopathic medicines for themselves and their communities. And so as I started getting into my own healing journey and doing my own research into natural healing and ways that I could use my food as my medicine, I started realizing that my own lineage and my own culture provides so much of what I already needed. It was always right in front of me, exactly what I needed in terms of those natural remedies.
Yeah.
I
love that. There's so much there to it I can relate to, and so much to it that I'm curious in the, what your reflections are on these foods as medicines, and, the experience I have connecting with those kinds of concepts, like a story, quick story going back. It's easy for me to remember the echinacea, and I tell this story probably really often about, just like digging echinacea roots when the 9/11 towers were coming down. It's like something that I always remember for, just like the time of year. And that's the time of year in which I was learning that the most medicinal properties are going into the root of the plant. So you're digging up these roots, and, that's the time of the year to be eating it. And I also have noticed that's when the flu shots are being advertised, and a lot of things are coming at us as we go into different seasonal weather, especially here in the Midwest. And the concept even that like we're living in these new forests where there's plants from all different ecosystems of the world, and, in new pairings that never existed before. And how even for me, like I reflect on how that interacting in that kind of ecosystem that's here present now, it's amazing how I can study Ayurvedic herbs and Chinese medicinal herbs and North American herbs and South American herbs all at the same time in this like way that we never have before. And it's so fun to hear other people's reflections of that internal forest that's inside of us and that forest that's on the outside of us as well. and I'm very intrigued by your reflections. And so, like the things that I'm intrigued by as well too, like you started this group that you do called Circle of Roots, and that's what you the concept you brought to Honey and Sage, right?
Yeah.
And that's like one of your creative focus projects to bring people together into a circle and kind of share these kind of reflections. Am I kind of like getting my own interpretation of it? I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, no, I love that interpretation of it. That's spot on.
Nice.
It was, it was me being able to bring the circle into the different circles of influence that I already had in my community. And so, yeah, I've brought the circle to a lot of different settings, but with the goal of always creating a space for us to reflect and connect and remember the medicine and the magic that always surrounds us, amongst us, within us.
Bring it into our present. Love songs and freedom papers.
Costa Rica is a really special place. I had the privilege of going there when I was a college student to study, and I just really fell in love. And honestly, it was the food. Speaking of food as medicine, I was living with a family during my stay, and I just remember being so amazed by how many different kinds of fruits that we were eating on a daily basis, and just how fresh the foods were, and then how flavorful some foods were that I had tried those same foods before, but they didn't taste the way that they tasted at that time when I was trying them in Costa Rica. Come to learn more about the culture there in Costa Rica, where the tagline of the country is Pura Vida, which means pure life. And so as a whole, people generally value kind of pure food and growing things organic, without chemicals, and keeping food and nature in its most pure form, which retains a lot more of the nutrients, retains a lot more of the flavor in the food. And it just feels good to eat it too. So just the lush environment and the ecosystems there, it just really connected with me in a way that I never forgot. And when I moved back to the States after my studies, and then ended up moving there again after I graduated from my undergrad, and I lived on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, which is where which is a place that there are indigenous people who live there, and the town parts were developed by Afro-Caribbean people. And so there's different layers and levels of culture on that Caribbean coast that you don't necessarily see in the rest of the country. And as someone with the cultural roots that I have, that Caribbean area felt more drew me in more, I suppose. It felt more like a place where I would want to be. And so I moved there after my undergrad, and I lived with a family at that time, and did like a work exchange with them. And this family was run by a woman named Veronica, and she had a vegetarian restaurant, and her and her family had a farm, and she is essentially like a medicine woman. She knows a lot of the local plants that are medicinal, and knows how to like make any kind of concoctions and things that are needed for various ailments in the body, mind, and spirit. And so I was able to live with her and work with her over that time to just experience her culturally rooted medicine. So like it's really important for her to share these medicines in a way to honor her Afro-Caribbean roots, with originally stemming from Jamaica. And so that's been the area of Costa Rica that I've gone back and forth to for about the last decade or so, now, which I, call one of my homes.
Incredible. So like, yeah, I'm very curious, like on some like specifics, like the in the earlier part of what you were just sharing, you were talking about different foods and how they tasted different than they ever have before. Are you talking about prepared foods? Are you talking about fresh, like fruits from the forest, both?
Yeah, mainly fresh food. So at that time when I first went there, I was in the city. I was in San Jose, in the capital, and I remember at that time I was 21 years old, and at that age I thought that I didn't like avocados. And then I remember going and eating guacamole at a restaurant there because some of our meals were provided by our group. And so I tried the guacamole there, and it was so flavorful. And I had no idea that avocado could taste like that. And then that started to make me realize, like, oh, okay, like when it comes directly from its source, it's a little different than when it's being imported because of a lot of various factors, including when fruits are being imported, they're being picked early so that they can make it through the travel time that's necessary so that they can be ready for ripe and ready when they hit our grocery stores. But what happens is the nutrients it doesn't get to grow to be its fullest nutritional form by the time it's picked. And then, of course, we don't know, when fruits are being mass produced for the sake of export, oftentimes there's a pressure for the farmers to use chemicals for them to grow faster and grow more. And so all of these different factors can contribute to the actual taste of the fruit itself. So the avocado was the first one that I noticed. And then the banana was the second one that I noticed. Tasted totally different than how I ever have experienced bananas here in Ohio.
Yeah, some different varieties and whatnot too.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of different varieties, more flavorful, more filling even. Like the one banana goes so much further in terms of filling me up there than a banana here would.
Right, like that sense of like feeling like you had some nutrients and like you did the thing, you got some energy from it and all the things, where like one banana here is like some kind of unit of measure from the store.
Yeah, and then it's like, I'm still hungry, like what's next? Can I have another one? Yeah.
That's amazing. And then like I imagine like with the this woman that you've gotten to work with, you were talking about creating different concoctions and remedies from the forest, and I'm very curious about that. Is there like some common remedies that like are regularly, you like annually make them at different times of the year and whatnot, or are you kind of creating lots of different things and then they're on stock and store?
With her, I actually didn't create anything with her. I would just kind of like followed her around doing what she does. And she, when we would walk around the town, even just to walk to the restaurant or, just wherever we needed to go on our daily commute, she would just point out different plants along the way that just grow naturally along the side of the road to say like, oh, here's this plant and it's used for this thing. So she just carries that knowledge and wisdom around what each plants are and how to use them for what. And then she also kind of had that role in the community and offered that to people who were traveling. If anybody needed something, was going through something, they would come to her. And then she would like go out into the yard and pick, you know, a couple leaves of this and a couple leaves of that. And she knew how to prepare the teas or the remedies that would help that person with whatever it was that they were going through.
Wow, that's really special to connect with that.
Yeah.
Connections like between people in the ecosystem, and you know, that kind of, I like your focus is that you give yourself for your work with community healing, culture, and sustainable living. And I guess like your focus even on the intersections of those, like the bridges that connect between those. So yeah, I'm very curious about that. I love building bridges between things, and you got some great focuses of bridge building.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because I studied conflict transformation. And when I went to go study conflict transformation, it was at the Center for Justice and Peace Building in Virginia. And I was studying from a lens of healing historical wounds. So understanding that like we have a lot of conflicts that may show themselves as interpersonal conflicts, community level, even international group conflicts. And I learned how to kind of analyze these conflicts and get to the roots of the conflicts and understand that a lot of these roots are historically rooted conflicts that are showing themselves in different ways. And so then learning different frameworks and understandings around, okay, how do we heal these generational wounds that we carry as societies, and as collectives, you know, as communities, and not just looking at healing as like this individual thing, but is really like, how are we repairing the fabric of our collective interdependence, essentially. And so coming from that perspective of, you know, trying to build these bridges once again, of where there has been disconnection over the years, and mistrust and isolation and fear, you know, how do we rebuild that? Through building trust and through reconnection. And so the reconnection is now like on all of the levels, like we need to reconnect within our own selves, to all of the aspects of ourselves so that we can remember our wholeness. But we also need one another for that too. We need each other. It's not something that can only happen in isolation. We may need to be separated for a certain time in order to go within and have that solitude. But then we also need that balance to connect with one another, because we are each other's mirrors. And we all have gifts that we need to share with one another. They're not for us, they're for each other. And so sometimes they can only be activated with one another. And that's where we heal those wounds of disconnection that have happened on the level of communities and relationships. And that's not only occurred between us as people, but it has also occurred with us in the natural environment that we live in. All of the plants and the animals and the insects and the water and earth, you know, like all of those places have been places where disconnection has occurred as well. And so to me, it's all one, you know, as we're learning to reconnect, to heal into this interconnected web of mutuality. It's all of those levels.
Yes. Yes.
Because when we come out of the womb and we start crying, it's the pain of being born.
So, like, this conference sounds amazing, and I'm imagining that you've gotten to do a lot of work with this focus and meeting amazing people and growing constantly, evolving, and, you know, there's a lot of challenges ahead. I mean, tomorrow we have a wonderful election, and, you know, who knows if I'll get this out before or after, you know, but I'm definitely hoping that everybody can remember their ecological humanity, you know, that part that, you know, remembers to take care of each other no matter what comes out of this. I'm nervous, honestly, my friend.
Yeah, it's definitely a time where, you know, as there is so much chaos and destruction that we're witnessing and experiencing, like, how can we lean into those bridges of trust within ourselves and one another, and remember our relationships with the earth? You know, it's going to be those relationships that really save us at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like you said, regardless of what happens in the elections.
Try to have patience with myself and have patience with others, and remember that we're all coming out of a lot of oppressive thoughts put into the way in which our brain neurons work, and we're all coming out of it in different places and different times and different flows, and connecting into different aspects of the greater flow. Like, there's so many names for it. Like, the greater ecosystem is like really how I relate to it. You know, like when I can find my flow but let go of my, you know, personal ego in it. Like, I'm doing things in the ecosystem and moving this and that to be in the flow of something bigger than myself. And that connection to nature has been really important for me to connect and share. And there's so much that I learn from others in that take me even deeper down these rabbit holes of questions and curiosities, and what are new ways in which we can think, and like, where are we going? Where do we all want to go? And I'm talking to the people and to the trees and the squirrels and the mushrooms and the little things that are crawling up from everywhere, and the things that are just lying still, dormant, like these microbials that have been dormant for like 400 million years. And then somebody core sampled the ocean floor and they kind of woke up. It's like everything's alive, biological, and connected. And there's, you know, this disconnect that can happen through, you know, an oppressive way of making, you know, putting onto other people around you, you know, these projections for long time, so much to heal. And yeah, I appreciate your work and your focuses and heal, and definitely hope that I can be supportive in any way along the journey and we can maintain ground.
Yeah, Darsheel, the elves really like what you're doing. We really appreciate you. Yeah, we do. Yeah, you're looking out for everybody. You know, elf culture is something.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks,
guys.
Elves.
So yeah, what's next for you? You got the Costa Rica R&R Retreat 2025 with the LuvLocs, and there's some other things kind of going on with that too. I'm excited to see how that goes. I know I'd love to be going on that, and part of my little elfie heart is going to be down there. I'll be up here doing some permaculture workshops during that time period. So we're all doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. With all these years going back and forth to Costa Rica and being able to call Costa Rica my home. My majority of my community is still in Ohio. And not only in Ohio, but I've actually developed relationships with people in a lot of different places around the United States and globally. And I'm really excited for this first opportunity to host people in Costa Rica. The circle work and even the work of the Heart Dayton, the community that we've been building for the last 5 years, where I actually built the trust with my collaborators of the LuvLocs and Natural Onyx Dimensions and all of our shared community that we've been building together. The heart of a lot of that work is hosting and hospitality. And it's inviting people into these spaces to where we can go deeper with one another and explore these topics that may be a little bit more vulnerable to explore. And so I'm really looking forward to be able to co-host a space in Costa Rica with my collaborators for this retreat next year in March of 2025. And it'll be about a week long, and we'll be infusing creative expression, arts, and music with healing, with sound bowl meditations and sound healing, as well as these circles, the same circles where we're able to reflect and connect with one another and with ourselves and with nature. Except in this situation, we will be in the jungle, right next to the beach, the black sand beaches, accompanied by sloths and monkeys and some awesome birds and beautiful flowers of all different kinds of colors, and all fresh organic fruits and foods that are just grown right there. And experiencing that pura vida medicine, the medicine that comes from nature and the fresh air, while we, explore that magic amongst ourselves and one another.
Yeah. Wake the farm up. Costa Rica R&R. Get you some 2025. It's in February. Don't miss out. Check it out. Might be a thing.
Amen. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah! It's so great to be Let's check it out.
Thank you. You far too kind. Just trying to be a better man in this Neverland. Trying to help my brethren be a better man and vice versa. The curse of the lost black king is lifted. Niggas gifted, huh? Get off your shoulders. Blaze a spliff and rejoice. My people waking up, now we can finally have a voice. And let that sun shine through. Kick it with my kinfolk. Nothing but love in the room. Don't know that indoor. Sky is the limit. LuvLocs official.
Costa Rica R&R. Get you some 2025. It's in February. Don't miss out. Check it out. Might be a thing.
Yes, it'll be in March.
So when, I'm like looping through our conversations too, there was a moment where you shared that connection with the ecosystem in Costa Rica that you had, and how you just described it a moment ago was really fascinating to me and looped me back to that. So I was like, I'm just like curious, like about like this bridge thing too, like your experience in the ecosystem in Costa Rica when you came back to the Midwest where you had spent a lot of time. Did the forest here speak to you in a different way, or?
Yeah, I first developed a relationship with nature here in the Miami Valley, going to Yellow Springs and just going to different woods and forests, as well as the rivers. We have four rivers that converge into a fifth, and the indigenous history of those rivers is that this was a convergence place of people from different tribes, and they would travel via the rivers. And then as these rivers converged here in this area in the Miami Valley, people were gathering across different cultures to trade with one another and share with one another. And so that is a original connection that I have, as far as learning about and connecting with nature. But then coming back, like, I think being in Costa Rica, I was able to experience a next level of sacredness within myself, and being able to hear connection with my higher self, and with divinity, and with the Most High, with Waheguru, and with the voices of my ancestors. And it just feels like there's maybe a more direct connection that I've felt there, due to less pollution, whether that's light pollution, sound pollution, chemical pollution, all of the different ways that there's pollution here that I don't experience there. So yes, when I came back here, having had tapped into this next level of sacredness in nature, I was able to experience that here as well. And I had the, realization in a felt sense in my body of, like, all land is sacred. It's just some lands are being cared for more than others, and protected, and
Every bit of water is holy water. Every bit of land is holy land.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're all part of this Gaian body, and this organic flow. It's there to, like everything's there to nurture us if we can read the signs and communicate with it. And every day there's something there that opens another little door of information, and allow that to come up through the generations. See where we're going with that?
Mm-hmm.
Associating with, I like connecting with ancestors and descendants, and finding yourself in that middle ground, the present, and activating, coming alive. What do we need to know about these bridges of community healing, culture, and sustainable living, and finding those bridges and growth?
Yeah, and I think it's a time for us to reclaim culture as an avenue that actually leads us, a pathway that leads us towards our wholeness and our shared vitality. We have been disconnected from our own sense of culture. Many people think that they don't have culture, or other people have been had their cultures demonized or looked down upon, or seen as they are less than. And so I think now, for me, a big part of my work with this culture work is to help us see that we can co-create culture. And we do co-create culture every day when we act according to certain values and principles that we may have. And so we actually have a choice in who we want to be, and also acknowledging the roots of the cultures that we come from and our lineages and all of the aspects of those cultures, and then being intentional and clear about which aspects of those need to be carried forth, and what parts of those maybe need to be reimagined for the world that we are living in and moving into.
I like that. So, like, what are some feels that you may have on what could be reimagined in our current times?
Well, my background is in restorative justice. And so when it comes to justice, justice is a concept that I've spent a lot of time reimagining what that means outside of the criminal legal system, outside of the carceral system of just if you do something bad, then you are a criminal, you are labeled a criminal, and you need to be punished, and you need to be isolated from society and put behind bars in a rural area far away from any of your loved ones and your community. So this idea that justice requires isolation and creating more harm versus the potential for bringing people together again and creating healing and being creative. How can we be generative in our conflicts, and how can we allow for opportunities for healing on the individual and on the collective level when there is a conflict or when a harm occurs. And how can we continue to recognize our shared humanity even when it's difficult?
Yeah, sometimes it can be difficult, I guess, in these times. In the present and, in any other time of history, it seems like so many questions. Like with this justice, I do believe it was noted that the first people in North America, at least 400 or 500 years ago, kind of time range, didn't have prison systems. And yet there was millions of people and a culture, and people were doing things. And, it's interesting to rethink and reimagine a justice system that doesn't have a prison. Like, how does it work with stuff like that, And people always come at me and they're like, well, you can imagine the most terrifying, person, doing something, and what would you do? And it's like, I don't know, nature kind of has its laws, it's the karmic laws of things, what you put out come back at you, all these different things. And I don't know, they seem to be part of nature and the way things flow. So I feel like a lot of the justice kind of takes care of itself. It's just hard sometimes because it's you got to be really patient. It takes a long time for some things to come back around.
Yeah, and it's really allowing ourselves to be in that reimagining mindset, it's not about let's just get rid of all of this stuff. I mean,
right.
It's more so, how can we be creative in our own lives, personally and interpersonally, and recognize possibilities beyond what's in front of us, and allow for the spaciousness, for the unknown as well, the unseen, to be able to also help us create some healing as we create that spaciousness inside of ourselves and amongst one another.
Wake the farm up. Hopesday prepping. I'm a Hopesday prepper. I feel there's this concept of doomsday prepping, and that's come at me a lot in teaching permaculture and connecting to the earth skills. People want to be prepped, and they have all their different doomsday theories that they come at with, and I process them all. But for the most part, I'm a Hopesday prepper. And I know it seems to be a little bit more challenging sometimes than what I hear some of these other situations may seem to be like, where you kind of have a list of like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to like bring this all down into my bunker or something. But I don't know, just like that Hopesday prepping takes a lot of work, and, you know, creating things and adaptations and evolving and learning and listening. You know, like this tree in your yard might have this totally different idea on how it wants you to interact in the yard. Maybe it doesn't really think that lawn and grass is the best idea because it covers it with leaves all the time. You know, so it's like it's communicating something, and if we can like kind of even like just tune in and listen beyond ourselves, and that's what I'm always trying to grow myself in, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, that deep listening, right? Like listening to what is being shown to us and what is being communicated to us around us versus just what we know and have known, or what we may think for ourselves.
Yeah, I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate your work so much and all the different things that you've, you know, I've seen you contributing to, and look forward to growing with you and creating things with you and creating those bridges and, you know, visioning, you know, where we're going and sharing it. And I'd love to hear what you have to share any day. So, you know, appreciate you circling up the circle of roots. And may those roots grow a strong trunk and branches.
Ashe.
Thank you so much for, you know, being here with us. Is there anything that you feel that you would love to explore and share in this conversation?
The one other thing that just came to my mind is like when it comes to circle of roots, I come from my own specific lineage and cultural and ancestral background, which I mentioned earlier. But from traveling to different places, I have found connection and unity and oneness in amongst people of different cultures and of different lineages and spiritualities and identities. And so part of what Circle of Roots has shown me, has been revealed via Circle of Roots over the years, is that there is kind of a place for that unification for community, with acknowledging and honoring our differences as well. And so having our differences doesn't mean we can't come together under the what we call one love consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you hear a lot in reggae music, for example, one love, and from the Rastafari community. And I come from a totally different lineage from a different part of the world, and we have that same concept of one love, that we're all one, and we may all be different expressions of that one, you know, and to be able to honor that like sovereignty and the beauty of our expressions within that. So when I think of Circle of Roots, what I've actually experienced with Circle of Roots over the years, especially with my deep trust building partnerships that I have been cultivating, is that, you know, there are cultures, you know, that I may call like roots cultures,
Mm-hmm.
right? Cultures that are related, connected to the land and to the roots, which really takes you to the like mycelium network. You know, there's this rootedness. Our roots actually connect to one another. And that's where the interdependence is, even though in above ground we're individual beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's just something really beautiful that has been shown to me through exploring this work with Circle of Roots.
Well, melted by that work, really, like my heart space. It's good connection, growth, and all realms, all the realms.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I've been on the Elfstead here for about 15 years now, and there's trees that I've planted that make fruit now. That there's seeds that one time had been inside of my mouth, and to me, it's fascinating to see them larger than me and barren with fruit. And it's interesting how the pawpaw. So I'm talking about this pawpaw tree specifically, and how in the past it had like most pawpaw trees that I know of will deliver all the fruit to you in about a 2-week time period. But I have this set of 9 trees around here, and they were delivering just about 6 or 7 fruits a day for about 2.5 months. And I felt like at a certain point an emotional connection to them, not just from me to them, but from them to me, that they were doing this on purpose to make sure I had the fresh pawpaw fruit every day, as many days as that it could, hold out on ripening for me. And I can only imagine what that would feel like if your people had been on the same land for 15,000 years or something. You know what I'm saying? It's I'm fascinated by 15 years of the experience. It's a feel to think of that for an elf like me.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to be able to build those long-term relationships with land, and many of us are seeking that and experiencing those relationships for the first time after that historical disconnect. Maybe our ancestors at some point did have those long-term relationships with the land that they were on, and so those are those skills that we're learning again now, like you said, and how to listen, and how to by listening and observing to what the land is communicating to us, we can learn so much. It sounds like you're learning a lot from having been building those relationships in the ecosystem that you're in now for the last 15 years.
Appreciate that reflection. And I do feel like I'm learning a lot. I feel like there's this fractal experience of questions, where you start out with a few simple questions like, why are leaves green or something, it's different for everybody, but something that connects you. And then there's questions just keep going on to fractal patterns of branches and rootlets going out in every direction with more questions. And it's so fascinating to be open to the exploration of that, and that makes me feel really alive, honestly, genuinely alive. Not just,
Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for sharing in this episode, touching my heart. Hopefully many others I know appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, this is so much fun, and look forward to seeing you at some fun events and doing our thing, being in community, living life. And maybe I'll have to converge over in the Dayton, Miami Valley area sometime with you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Do some reclaiming of our culture.
Yeah, maybe honey and sage next year.
Yeah. That's on the Elf Scrolls.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Let's give a round of applause. This was an amazing conversation and flow. Give a round of applause for Darsheel Kaur, Circle of Roots.
Thank you.
Wake the farm up.